recorded.
Manimeghale ma'am, shall we start the session, ma'am?
We can start.
Thank you,
Madam is there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Mangai madam has joined?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon to
yes.
all. Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. On behalf of Department of Women's Studies, Bhadidasi University, Center for Women's Studies, and NSS of Kaveri College for Women, in association with ROS, I welcome you all to this 1 month national level gender sensitization and capacity building program. Welcome you all. Now I request Dr. N. Murugeshwari, Professor, Department of Women's Studies, Bhadidasi University, to render welcome address. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Neela. Indian drama always shows women are often represented, I can say, as being primarily as a male-dominated endeavor. The contribution of women and other genders remained relatively under-researched. Popular theatre was highly discriminated spheres on the basis of gender. The public sphere was a male-dominated, where only women who were considered as public women were allowed to perform. But in male theoretical domain, women were forced to perform roles assigned to them by the male practitioners. However, the entry of the women practitioners in theatre had led to the questioning of assumed normative discourses. A new kind of theatre started emerging on the horizon, which is feminist in nature. Madam know very well about this. This kind of theatre was called Stree Priksha in the ancient period, and it is known as presently by the name feminist theatre. Having all those things, it is a need of the hour to talk about gender and theatre in India in a historical and current perspective. So I can say about today's resource person, of course, Madam Mangai is here. About her writings and thoughts, so many researchers have chosen her thoughts and writings for their research, both in state and central level. Such a nice, eminent personality today we have. At the juncture today, we have a renowned personality. Professor Mangai ma'am is here. On behalf of Department of Women's Studies, Bhadidasi University, National Service Scheme, Kaveri College for Women, and Regional Association for Women's Studies, it is my immense pleasure to welcome you, ma'am. I welcome our dynamic participants and the organizing committee, Professor Manimeghale ma'am, Dr. Shubha, and Dr. Neela. Once again, I welcome you all for the today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm welcome. Now I request Dr. N. Manimeghale, Dean, Faculty of Arts, Director and Head, Department of Women's Studies, Bhadidasi University, to introduce our today's resource person. Welcome you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Neela, for the continuous support and also managing the requirements to the participants as well as the resource persons. So today we have our renowned feminist scholar with us, Dr. Padma, actually called Padma, but Mangai is the pseudonym of Padma. And she was the Associate Professor and Head Department of English, Stella Maris College, Chennai, and you all know how popular there in the teaching profession on the one hand, and also equally engaging herself with activism, being a feminist scholar as well as the teacher there in the college. And wherever she was, she influenced people and started discussing with the feminist discourses, etc. And she has been part of the Tamil theatre world and women's movement for close to 3.5 decades. So that is the credit which we have. And in fact, you should see her short theatre performances way back in 80s or 90s. Since her adulthood or girlhood, I should say, she started associating herself with this theatre, and we had an opportunity to view and listen to those also when she was here for the refresher courses and all other discussions. And she writes in both Tamil and English and translates translated several contributions in other languages to Tamil and also to English. And her play Paniti, translated as Frozen Fire, explores Amba Sikandi and gender and sexuality perspective. and she has been a recipient of a Fulbright Fellowship twice and also Rockefeller Belogia residency. She strives to unite her activist, artistic and academic concerns. So basically, it is not just the activism and the academic concerns, and also she is an artist, and it will be reflected here today's presentation. And we are going to have a different kind of a discussion and interaction today. It is not going to be completely simply lectures or discussions. So you will have some visuals, and she has arranged to present them also in spite of the constraints that we here face. And thanks to Mangai for that also. And she has been associated with various movements. That is the credit which we have to register here. And the Tamil Nadu women's movement has to pay to her credit a lot of contributions. And also she has been active there in the Indian Association for Women's Studies and other grassroots movements, cure movements, and associating herself with various women's study centers, movements across the country and also abroad. And she practices whatever she teaches and preaches or discusses. She also practices there at her private sphere. That is the kind of feminism she inculcated in her. So she is really a role model for us to, in that sense, combining the activism, artistic and academic concerns to present the gender and sexuality issues or any other feminist concerns. So I take this opportunity to welcome once again Dr. Mangai to be the resource person today, and we are going to have a different kind of a discussion. Dr. Mangai, please.
Thank you, ma'am, for your nice introduction. May I now request today's resource person, versatile personality, Dr. Mangai, ma'am, feminist activist, former associate professor of English, Stella Maris College, Chennai, to take over the session. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible, yes. Ma'am.
Audible, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Manimegalai. It's been a very, very long friendship with Manimegalai. And Trichy is also very, very special to me because my post-graduation was in Holy Cross College. So Trichy is a very, very, I have a soft corner for Trichy. So thanks so much to Kaveri College for managing to arrange this for such a long duration. And I can actually see from the list of participants and their surnames that you're spread all over the country. So please feel free to really ask any questions. For those of you who are in the field of theater or performing arts and you're familiar with the book Acting Up, which was published in 2015 by Leftward, which gives you a kind of an overall sketchy outline of gender and theater in India. And that was a work which took me 10 years to work on. And I think everyone mentioned there has a special place in my heart because I think like in feminism, in feminist theater or gendered theater or women's theater, whatever you want to identify it as, there is a lot of give and take, and we do survive because of an affective solidarity that we as practitioners in theater have with each other. Now, I just want to kind of frame this whole talk since in the introduction, one of you mentioned Stree Preksha. Now, but she also mentioned how patriarchal the whole system is. Now, Stree Preksha is only one genre of theater mentioned in Sanskrit theater, which is supposed to be performed by all women, as against Purusha Preksha. But anyway, historically, both in Greek society, where you have the ancient theater, or in Natya Shastra, we do not find theater welcoming women. And the women who were allowed entry into that were not considered to be dignified and respectful in the rest of the society. You know, so on the one hand, when you have women being treated as an object of gaze, and therefore to have a woman on stage, moving her body, dancing and singing and being loud is not something that a patriarchal system would permit. So I'm not even talking about theater in its very developed form. We are talking about theatre even as traditional folk performances. I mean, from Tamil Nadu, I can actually list only one form, which is there in Gujarat, which is there in Maharashtra, what you call as Garba dance. We call it Kummi, we call it Kaikottukali in Malayalam, where women stand in a circle, clap their hands or clap two sticks, kolatam, and do the dance. Except that all that women are permitted to do in the sphere of music or dance or music primarily is lullaby and keening when somebody dies. So this is a very, very restricted movement that's given to women. But on the other hand, when there is a permissibility to objectify women, the way advertisements are doing today, the way most of our films are doing today, when you are treating the body of a woman as an object, which is actually a corollary of the capitalist consumerist society, in that sense, those women who are willing to do that are always considered lesser in the social hierarchy. And India, along with many other ancient societies like in Japan and China, specializes in that, and we call them the Ganikas, the Devadasis or the Ganikas. So you do have these women who are into performance segregated from the rest of the category called women. So please bear that in mind. There is so much of hatred against women on stage in this very genre. So it's a very, very systemic kind of thing. Now, world over, I mean, it's not something special to India. It is there world over. Even those of you who are studying in English literature, you would know till about the late 17th century, what you call as a Restoration age, you did not have women coming up on stage. You had to have men who will impersonate the female characters. Now, in the case of India, we still have the continued tradition of female impersonation. So we do have, if you go to Kanyankuttu or Jatra or in Terukuttu, you will still find the male members performing the female roles, and this is a convention of theatre. So I mean, I don't see it as negative, but as a convention, it dictates certain norms. So like any other norm, today we look at a zero-size heroine and you think that is how all women are supposed to be. So probably the men who were impersonating women on stage were giving us the fashion statements of that time. So you have them in Kuttu, you have them in what we call a special drama or Isai Nadagam or Parsi theatre all around the world. The only form which actually had primarily women as performers was Tamasha. And that was usually performed by women from the Dalit communities. And these tamashas, these tamasha women were actually breadwinners of the house. I mean, people say that they will wear like 5 kilograms of gungurus, chalangan, in their leg when they dance, for each leg. So it is, and she can actually make all of them sound. She can also dance in such a way that it reduces the sound till one bell rings. So it's an extremely skillful dance form used very much by Bollywood system, but then catering primarily to the seductive nature of women in a patriarchal system. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to go into that, but I'm willing to take them up in questions if any one of you would be interested into as far as my capacity goes. The second aspect is like in writing, like in political participation, like in leadership in panchayats, all of us know that world over in theatre also, they were either government initiated or community organizations which were working for building women's theatre, women's drama. So they were giving funds for women to evolve their own scripts, form their own groups and perform and all that. Now, Indian government has never been that great in terms of art funding. So they did not really kind of cater much And whenever it went primarily to classical forms, very often situated in the urban centers. And I don't think the government at any point started talking about women in theatre, because that was not their concern at all. But like in the UK, where they called it as consciousness raising, CR groups. So in India, many of the women's movement, which really caught on after 1975, which we see as a watershed year in the history of women's movement, with the publication of Status of Women report published by Veena Mazumdar and co. So, and then plus added to it the UN Decade of Women declared by the UN. So 1975 to 85 became crucial in many spheres for women. Now, for women's movement, of course, the primary issues were dowry, because of dowry death and the increasing rates of young women who are married and dying within a span of a few months or to a year. And then there was also this major case, Mathura rape case. So the two major issues that really rocked the women's movement in its early years of formation were dowry and rape. Now, what did the women's movement do? Women's movement turned to theatre. I mean, on hindsight, now thinking back, I'm thinking maybe we did not have as many filmmakers, nor did we have the resources to make films, and therefore you wanted theatre groups to really be our campaigners. That could be one reason. The second reason could be women, unlike many other invested bodies, would know as a marginalized body, it is important to really put forth women in public, talking about issues that are concerning us. Now, this is very, very important, because women, it is not that women were not there. There was never an absence of women. As all of us know, ideally, which female population should be 1,000 to 1,100 at least, if we let the nature take its call. But unfortunately, as all of you know, we have a skewed up sex ratio, and then so the women were always present. They were never absent, but they were invisible, just like women's labor that is invisible, because it is not considered cooking and cleaning and laundry and taking care of the elderly and everything is never considered work. It took a long time for the economists to really put all these spheres into women's labor, into really talking about that. So the women were always there, but there was an invisibility of women, which we were addressing. So in women's theatre, starting from Delhi, where you had people like Kumkum Sankari, Suresh Vaid, and others, early leaders who were also academicians with feminist acumen in working in different institutions, who finally led IAWS to be formed in 1981. So what happened was that they decided and they wanted theatre groups, theatre to be made on the issues of the people. And in Delhi, at least, we had Anuradha Kapoor and Maya Krishna Rao, who are stalwarts of theatre, who really worked with the women's movement and produced plays. Now, the interesting thing is, simultaneously, almost around the same time, within a span of 1 year, you have a group in Bombay doing a play called Mulki Zaliho. You have a group in Kolkata doing a play called Monkey Dance. You have group in Ahmedabad as part of Awaz, a women's group. And you also have in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, you have the translation of Safdar Ashmi's play Aurat, which was translated as Pen. Now, what really interested me in writing that book, Acting Up, is that how is it at a time when there was no Google Meet, there was no WhatsApp groups, and there was not even landline phone numbers for many of us, that all of us were dreaming the same dream. And we were also kind of proceeding to in whatever way we can within the same lines, which we got to know only in 1990s. Till then, for 10 years, simultaneously, it was like a zigzag puzzle which fell into place. So there were women from all over the country who were actually kind of working in theater. So what I'm going to present to you is one of the plays that we did as part of a project called Voicing Silence, which was a project with MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, founded in 1992. So this was a play based on female infanticide, and using Augusto Boal's method of theater of the oppressed. At that time, we did not know enough about those theaters or the technicalities of it. So it was a working of activists, artists, and the various NGOs who were working in this field, either in Madurai or in Salem or Dharmapuri district. So what you're going to see now is a video clip. It has subtitles, and I'm just crossing my fingers, and I should thank Neela for the patience yesterday, and my student and friend Krishna, who is going to be presenting that for you. I hope it works. Please bear with me if the quality is a little bit less. I will be willing to share the links. If any of you want, you can check with the organizer, and Neela has all the video clips. Krishna, we'll see Pachamannu.
ஏண்டி புள்ள வேணும்டி புள்ள வேணும் புள்ளன்னு சொன்னா என்ன மாதிரி இதா இவங்கள மாதிரி இதா இவங்கள மாதிரி அழகான இதா இவங்கள மாதிரி அழகான கற்கண்டு மாதிரியான லட்டு மாதிரியான ஆம்பளை புள்ள வேணும்டி ஆம்பளை புள்ள வேணும் கொஞ்சம் போல மாதிரி இருக்கியான்னு கேக்குறாங்க நாங்க என்ன சொல்றேன்னு சொன்னா ஆம்பளை புள்ள வேணும்.
Krishna, can you pause the video for 1 minute? Okay. Participants, kindly pin Krishna J. Nair in the participant list to view the video. Thank you, Krishna. You can play.
And the subtitles.
என்னடி பேச்சு ரொம்ப நீளுது அடி ரொம்ப நாளாச்சு இல்ல
உனக்கு அது தவிர வேற என்னத்த தெரியும் அடிச்சுக்கிட்டே இரு உனக்கு நான் என்னத்த கேக்குறேன் என்ன வேணும்னாலும் செஞ்சுக்கோ என் பிள்ளைய விட்டுருன்னு நிறைய கேக்குறேன்.
அதான் நடக்காது நடக்கவே நடக்காது. இத பாரு திரும்ப திரும்ப ராமாயணம் பாடிட்டு இருக்க எனக்கு நேரம் இல்ல. உன் முடிவை மாத்திக்கலன்னா இப்பவே உன் அம்மா விட்டு ஓடிடு. இல்லன்னா கொலகார நாக்காத
20 வருஷமா சோறு போட்டு பாத்துறாரு வேணுங்க விரோத வச்சுக்கிறது வேணாங்க போது அனுப்பிடுறதான்னு கேக்குறாரு.
What happened, Krishna?
Ma'am, some error has happened. I'll just refresh and start presenting again.
Or we can skip that. Don't worry. Just get the next one ready. Yeah, that was just to give you an idea. If we have the time, we will go back to that video, and probably we'll get to see how the audience are interacting in that, so it becomes you can all find out how theater can actually kind of create a certain discussion or become sorry, am I visible?
Okay. Yes, ma'am, you are visible, ma'am.
Okay. Because I can't see myself in this, so that's okay. So what the way theater actually worked was to actually create a certain pretext for discussion. So it's not as if people are not discussing any of these issues, but it really brought out the way in which people could really kind of discuss and share the opinion. We'll come back to it if we have the time. Now, those of you who are familiar with the history of Indian theatre, both traditional theatre as well as contemporary modern theatre or post-independent theatre, as we call it, would know the role of myths in this. So the myths were predominantly occupying our the way myths were used in order to really interpret. Now you're talking about these myths where you have or people and at very, very many different forms which are still using a lot of mythologicals, you know. So I mean, even today, I think for us, the moment you really want to kind of focus on something national, our thoughts immediately go back to Ramayana and Mahabharata. Now, what I want to really share with you is the way the women reinterpreted myths. I mean, those of you familiar with the history of Indian theatre will know that the play called Mohan Rakesh's play Andayug, which is based on Mahabharata, and from Kandari's point of view, talking actually about war, was considered to be a classic. Or you have Girish Karnad, who has Hayavadana and Nagamandala, which are all based on myths. So the myths played a really crucial role in the gamut of theatrical productions at that time. Now, what we have and what I want to really share with you is a play called Draupadi, which is based on Maheshwata Devi, the Bengali playwright, Bengali novelist, short story writer, journalist, and activist, and a feminist, and Jnanpith Award winner and Sahitya Academy Award winner. I'm sure all of you are familiar with her. Now, she wrote this Dopti, she called it Dopti, this play, and during the time of the Maoist rebellion in West Bengal, and was really talking about state power. Now, what we are going to see is a Manipuri group, which is actually presenting that play in the context of Manipur. We will come back to the context. Now, just for a brief thing, the play talks about Draupadi, who is a tribal girl, who is part of the Maoist movement. And she had been in the movement right from her young times, and she knows the forest in and out. And she knows that the people are following her, and there is a squad which is actually waiting to encounter her. So if she had just gone in her usual path, the whole other comrades who were there in the forest would have been arrested or would have been killed. Now, what Dopti decides is to change the course, and of course she gets caught in the evening, and then she has people making her. That's what the Maheshwata Devi says. By making her, she means it's gang raped, and there's a beautiful, not beautiful, very, very lyrical, poetic passage at the end of that, where she talks about the pain, the blood, her bleeding breasts and everything. And then next day, she is asked to wear something, wear some clothes. And then she said, why should I? Where is a man here that I should go wearing something? So she walks naked to Senanayak, who is the leader of that encounter group. And when he looks at her and they try to clad her and she cannot be clothed. And the last line says, for the first time in his life, Senanayak was afraid. He was afraid of an unarmed target. She was a target, nevertheless, and she was unarmed, but she frightened him. So the production was done by Kanailal, who is no more. It's a group called Kalakshetra in Manipur. So I can see some of you from Northeast here. You must be familiar with it. And Sabitri Kanailal, who was his partner, and literally gave life to all his imagination. And she performs that role. In fact, she performed the first play that she performed after his death. Was this play, and the play is still being performed in different parts of the country, wherever you go, and I'm sure they're performing it in Manipur as well. We'll have Dopti. Thank you, Krishna. I mean, you do have a version of this performance on YouTube, the full performance. In fact, the play came under severe critique because in the last scene, for a split second, you really see Savitri naked on stage. And the Indian morality was very, very upset. And Kanailal was blamed for showing his wife naked on stage because that is not what honorable men do. And there were all kinds of criticism. But within a few years of that performance, you did have women in Manipur waging a struggle. Can we see that image, Krishna? I'm sure all of you are familiar with this image. Now, all these women are Meera babies in Manipur, one of the mothers' movement, very strong, very traditionally rooted, and there are different issues that we need to discuss about it. But then what they did was when one of their activists called Manorama was taken into, she was pulled up by the Special Powers Act, the army, AFSPA, as we call them, the Special Powers Act, and she was raped, and there were bullets shot into her vagina, and she was in pieces. And when the women saw this, now this is right outside the office of AFSPA, and the women used this banner to really hide their nudity. Now, I think this is one of the most sensitively taken picture that we have in our country, because it is talking about women bearing themselves naked, and they achieved what they wanted because the office was shifted from that place. Yeah, thank you, Krishna. Now, this particular incident that took place is something very, very historically relevant because I think it's one of those rare incidents where the stage preempted a struggle. And let me say, the writing preempted the struggle. I'm not saying, I don't think the women saw Kanailal's performance of Draupadi. It must have been performed right outside. And in fact, you have one more play by Kanailal called Nupur, which actually talks about issues within Manipur. So some of the things that they brought out during the plays almost became visionary. It almost became as if they knew the future. Those images of Manipuri young boys being asked to beat each other up on the street or being dragged, being asked to kind of do sit-ups on the road so that people can look at them. So this was part of the terrorizing aspect, and I'm sure this is the kind of everyday life that Kashmir is facing today. Now, so in the early, but we are talking about 80s to like mid-90s, what women's movement was very concerned about was dowry and rape, as I mentioned, and also against state atrocities. Now, the theatre groups that were there, women who were consciously engaging with theatre were addressing these kind of issues. So it becomes a way by which you're really taking the movement forward. I think it works both ways. It is a movement that creates you the way you are, because I see myself as a child of the 70s women's movement, and I had nothing in my life to make me into an activist. I was born in a very conservative family. You just wanted to study, get a good job, and get married and settle down. But then it really gave us a dream for equality. And therefore, all that reflected, I think, in the theatre that we produce, in the theatre that we act. I'm going to move on to the next decade or so, when from 92 onwards, where communal issues became one of our most troubling issues. And by the time we came to 2002, we already had Godra. So we knew it was not going to end, and I don't think it's going to end. So we have created very successfully our own neighbors who will be afraid of us, and people who will be afraid of eating the routine food that they are used to eating. So that it's a very different country. It's not the country that we thought we were getting into when we had freedom, because unlike the erstwhile Pakistan, which decided to really kind of choose Pakistan as a Muslim nation, India chose to become a multi-religious country. It took us a while to really add the word secular to our republic, but which was added. So we were a secular socialist republic. But then the threat to that have started, I think it was always there, because the country itself was born with bloodshed during the partition. So what happened after 2002, when the landscape of the India that we all were familiar with, some of you who are youngsters and the young women whom I taught in Stella Maris probably were born in that category. And people in the South were usually not aware of it, except in some pockets and maybe in Kerala to some extent. Tamil Nadu was supposed to be very, very peaceful, but then I think things are changing even here. So what happened is Kirti Jain, whose parents were part of Indian People's Theatre Association during the freedom struggle, and who was also the director of National School of Drama, decided to do a performance. And she wanted to do a performance based on real life stories that will speak to the communalization of politics. And what she turned to Urvashi Butalia's Other Side of Silence, which is a documentation of many people, especially a lot of women, who have witnessed the violences of partition narratives, especially from within India. And she was also not talking about violence as, okay, Hindu hurt the Muslims and the Muslim hurt Hindus. She was also talking about how, in the name of honor, the communities were killing their women. They did not even have to ask. They only had to say, you save us the honor of our community, and the women just chose to do what they wanted to do. So this play, which is called Aur Tukne Kitne, I think. I'm sorry, I'm not getting the title right. Now she decides to do this play. I don't have a subtitle for this. It's a play in Hindi, and I can see one or two of you from Punjab signing in, for whom probably it will resonate. For the Tamil Nadu audience, it is a story of a woman in Delhi who originally belonged to Punjab. And because in their village, they decided that all the women would jump into a well and commit suicide, so that any outsider who will enter their village will not have to dishonor them. So their honor will be preserved. So there is this woman who tried to jump in, but by the time the well is full, and she keeps jumping over and over again, but she is unable to drown herself. And she was pregnant at that time. And she actually has to live her life, and she lives in Delhi. And it is in Delhi that Urvashi Butalia meets her as the mother of an auto driver. And she lives. I mean, I can follow up on the story a little more after you see the visual. We will stop at that 4th minute, Krishna.
बहुत सारी औरतें कुएं में कूदी थी, उनकी सहेली की नई नई शादी हुई, वो बोले हाय मेरे हाथों की मेहंदी मेरी छोटी, मुझे मत मारो। एक बहुत बूढ़ी औरत थी, वो भी कूदी। ये क्यों कूदी? है तो वैसे ही मर जाती।
अरे देख देख, मंगल की बीवी ऐसे कूदी।
कुछ नहीं बचा।
मेरी दादी की सहेलियां कैसे कूदी थी?
कैसे? झूठ बोलता है, झूठ। ऐसी नहीं कूदी। हाँ। क्या करना? क्यों? जिनको बच्चा होने वाला था वो भी तो कूदी थी।
बच्चा मत
बच्चा
ऐसे पकड़ ले, मर जाएगा।
नीचे बच्चा भी क्या होगा?
की मम्मी और उसकी मम्मी की एक मौसी।
मैंने टेलीविजन में देखा था, मैं बताती हूँ, इधर आओ, मेरे पीछे पीछे आओ जल्दी। टीवी बहुत देखते हैं। अरे हाँ, उसमें लड़के तो थे नहीं। तुम जाओ, नहीं नहीं। वाहिगुरु जी, सतनाम 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 जी, वाहिगुरु जी, सतनाम 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 जी, वाहिगुरु जी, सतनाम सतनाम सतनाम। बोले सोनिहाल सत श्री अकाल। वाहिगुरु, मेरे हाथों की मेहंदी, हाय मेरे गहने। वाहिगुरु, सतनाम बोले सोनिहाल, हाय मेरा बच्चा, वाहिगुरु। बोले सोनिहाल सत श्री अकाल। वाहिगुरु, बोले सोनिहाल सत श्री अकाल। सतनाम वाहिगुरु, बोले सोनिहाल सत श्री अकाल। बोले सोनिहाल सत श्री अकाल। मैं तो मरी नहीं। तुम्हारा जा। जल्दी आजा, जल्दी जोर से बोलना। बोले सोनिहाल और मैं तो फिर बच गई। हम नहीं खिलाते तेरे को। मैं डरती हूँ। नहीं अभी तो तेरे सामने कूदी दो बार को नहीं खिलाएंगे। अब बिल्कुल कुट्टी कर दो सारे इसके साथ। इसको बाहर निकालो यहाँ से। मैं बात नहीं कर रही। क्यों? मैं अभी तो कूदी तेरे सामने। कलंकनी है, कलंकनी। या नाच होए चुल्लू भर पानी में डूब। सारे कौन का नाम बदनाम कर देता। सारी बिरादरी में नाच बता दी तूने।
What happened?
Sharon Rose ma'am, stop presenting.
No one should present now while the video is on, please.
Hello? Hello?
Sharon
It is
Rose
on.
ma'am, stop presenting ma'am.
Krishna, please play.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Suddenly எல்லாம் கட் ஆயிடுச்சு எனக்கு. Sorry. What happened?
Somebody started presenting, so that disrupted your that video. That is
Okay. We were almost coming to the close.
Yeah.
Krishna,
Yeah.
Krishna, you share your screen again, Krishna.
Illa, it's okay. That was towards the end. We had like 30 seconds more.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. What is really important, and I have discussed this scene in particular in my book in greater detail. So it is the children who are playing, and the children who are remembering, who are aware of whatever stories their grandmothers or mothers would have been saying. And then you see them reenacting that scene, so it's a way by which there is an interplay of memory, retelling of the story, and how is one going to cope with this kind of situation. Now, this is something which I think many artists have dealt with. In Sri Lanka, for example, there is a poet called Ariyar who has a poem, which really speaks from a child's point of view. So the child says, we kept going to new places, and then there were many houses there, and there were many children to play with. So we all played. All around us is barbed wire. So that is the way what kind of image are we leaving for the future generation, for the future to remember the kind. They may not even have seen any of this in person, but then if they are hearing those stories, I still know that in Chennai, I had a student and a friend of mine whose family had moved to Chennai after the partition. And I remember her telling me that it was so difficult for her grandmother to talk about those days after so long in this place. After being in Chennai, and you're not nowhere near Punjab, but then it still kind of gets handed over. Now, I just want you to kind of think of these trauma that we are carrying probably on our nation and in our heads and probably in our bodies, and then look at the images that are coming to us, that are being thrown at us today in this, not just because of Corona, but of everything that is happening around us in our country, whether it be in Kashmir, whether it be in Delhi, or various people who are in jail now and who cannot really speak up. So we are in a difficult time, which is worse than Corona, I think. I just want to move on to the last point that I want to make, so that in the interest of time, and I would like to give more time for discussion. In the 2000s, with the advent of discovering that HIV is rampant in India, and the government immediately started taking a lot of steps, and one of the sectors in the society identified as high-risk category was sex workers and transgender community. And therefore, you needed to warn these high-risk category to be safe themselves, and also kind of bring in this message of HIV/AIDS awareness to the public. That was the main intention as far as the state government went. But then the transgender community in our country and the queer community will join them to a large extent, because otherwise you had the gay and lesbian community separately, and the trans community, since it has its own traditional ways of organizing itself, it was different. And the sex workers movement had a lot of debates with the women's movement, and it was not easy for the women's movement to really accept the demands and the discussions that the sex workers movement has been raising. But thankfully, women's movement, unlike many other power harboring, power mongering groups, we have no kingdom to win. So we are okay to discuss, but we allowed that time to really take place. Now in 2000, I'm going to talk on the experience of Tamil Nadu, because I started working with the trans community, and we formed a transgender group in Tamil Nadu for getting voters' ID cards for trans people. Of course, that was Jayalalitha's regime, and then she gave them an voters' ID card, and she said, you choose whichever sex you want to click. So you decide whether you want to do male or female. But now, of course, Indian passport applications have a third column. So they have this option to really mark that and say that they have transitioned. So what we are going to watch is a solo performance, which we evolved 2 years ago with A. Revati, who is one of our transgender feminist activists, and a writer. Her book was published by Penguin, Truth About My Life, which is prescribed in many institutions, including Stella Maris College. And she also went on to publish another book from Zuban. So the book was published in 2013 or 14, I think, by Penguin. And then her name was listed as part of the Butler Library in Columbia University, New York, along with Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison, which is, I think, something to be proud of for all of us, as women, as Indians. So she wanted to do her own autobiography into a performance. So what you're going to watch now is a small clip from that. I'm going to skip the last clip, which is about a trans man's narrative. We will get more time to discuss it, I feel. So we'll see Revati's show, which is in Tamil, it's called Vellai Mori.
உங்களை எல்லாம் பார்க்கணும்னு நாமக்கல்ல இருந்து வந்திருக்கேன். எப்படி இருக்கு நான் கட்டுக்கிற புடவை? நல்லா இருக்கா? ஆனா நான் புடவை கட்டுறதுக்கு எத்தனை கஷ்டங்களை, எத்தனை அவமானங்களை சுமந்திருக்கேன் தெரியுமா? அக்கா ஒரே பாவாடை கட்டிக்கிட்டேன், ஜாக்கெட்டும் போட்டுக்கிட்டேன், புடவையும் கட்டிக்கிட்டேன், கடையில வாடகைக்கு எடுத்து அந்த விக்க வச்சுக்கிட்டேன், பிரஷ் கம்மல், பிரஷ் மூக்குத்தி போட்டுக்கிட்டேன், கை நிறைய வளையல் போட்டு தலை நிறைய பூ வச்சு கண்ணாடியில் என்னுடைய அழகை பார்த்தேன். அட 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 அடடா, எவ்வளவு சுந்தரியா இருக்கிறேன் நானு. நான் வீட்டுல ஆஃப் டிரைவர் முண்டா பண்ணிட்டு போட்டு படுத்துதான் எனக்கு வழக்கம். முதல் முறையா பொம்பளை உடுப்புல பொம்பளையா நான் படுத்து தூங்குறேன். இல்ல ஒரு நாளைக்கு இவ்வளவு கஷ்டம்னா காலம் பூரா பொம்பளைக்கு எப்படிதான் இந்த மாதிரி உடுப்பு போட்டுக்கிறாங்களோ? அது என்னமாப்பா, பொட்ட பிள்ளைங்க ஆம்பளைக்கு செடிக்கு சமமா நின்னு பேசக்கூடாதான், கால் மேல கால் போட்டு உட்கார கூடாதான், கலவு மூஞ்சுதான் போகணுமா முன்னோர்கள் சொல்லியிருக்காங்க. இருக்கட்டும், நாம படுத்து தூங்குவோம். ஏமதா, உன் பேர் என்னடி? துரைசாமி அம்மா. ஆம்பளை பேரை சொல்லாதடி, பொம்பளை பேரை சொல்லு. உனக்கு நீங்க கற்பனை பண்ணி ஒரு பேர் வச்சிருப்ப பாரு, அந்த பேரை சொல்லு. நேற்று தானே எல்லாரும் சினிமா நடிகை ரேவதி மாதிரியே இருக்கிறேன்னு சொன்னாங்க, அந்த பேரையே சொல்லிடுவோம். ரேவதி அம்மா என் பேரு. ஏட்டா, இன்னையில இருந்து அவதான் உனக்கு அம்மா. எப்படி உன் குடும்பத்துல உனக்கு அம்மா அப்பா இருக்கிறாங்களோ அதே மாதிரி நம்மளுடைய சமுதாயத்துல உனக்கு அம்மா அப்பா எல்லாம் அவதான். காலங்கள் கடந்தோடுச்சு. ஒரு நாள் எனக்கு ஒரு போன் வந்துச்சு. அன்னைக்கு அவளை கண்ணாடி கூட்டு கூடதான் நான் பார்த்தேன். வெறும் கண்ணு மூக்கு உலகு மட்டும்தான் தெரியுது. உடம்பெல்லாம் கத்தியால குத்தி கொண்டு போட்டிருக்கிறாங்க படுவாங்க. இப்படி செய்ய எப்படிதான் மனசு வருது? அவ செஞ்ச தப்புதான் என்ன? அவன் ஞாயிற்றுதான கட்டி கேட்டா, ஈவு இறக்கம் இல்லாம இப்படி கொண்டு போட்டிருக்கிறாளுங்களே படுவாங்க. இந்த சமூகம் எங்களுக்கு இது வரைக்கும் என்ன பண்ணி இருக்குது? ஒண்ணும் இல்ல. கை கட்டி கடகடையா போய் பிச்சை கேட்கணும், இல்லைன்னா ரோட்ல போய் செக்ஸ் ஒர்க் பண்ணணும். ரெண்டே விட்டு எங்களுக்கு வேற வழியே இல்லை. ஆனா இதே சமூகம் எங்களை பார்த்து நிறைய கேள்விகளை கேட்கணும். மாடு மாதிரி வாழ்ந்துருக்கிறீங்க, கை தண்ணியில போய் கடையில பிச்சை கேட்கறீங்க, ஏமா இப்படி தொந்தரவு பண்றீங்கன்னு கேட்டா துணியை தூக்கி காட்டுறாங்க. ட்ரெயின்ல தூங்கிட்டு போனா கூட அடிச்சு எழுப்பி காசு கொடுக்குறாங்க. என்ன வாழ்க்கையோ உங்களுக்கு எங்க இருக்குதான் வருவாங்களோ. நீங்க எங்களை பார்த்து கேள்வி கேட்கறீங்களா? உங்களை பார்த்து கேள்வி கேட்கறதுக்கும் என்கிட்ட நிறைய இருக்கு. 5 வயசு 10 வயசு குழந்தைங்களை கடத்திக்கிட்டு போய் பாலியல் வன்புணர்வு கொண்டு தீமநூத்தி கொளுத்தி சாகடிக்கிறீங்களே, இதுவா உங்களுடைய கௌரவம்? ஜாதின்ற பேர்ல, மதன்ற பேர்ல ரோட்லயும் ரைட் அண்டவனத்தையும் வெட்டி போடுறீங்க, இதுவா உங்களுடைய தர்மம்? எல்லாம் யாரு தப்புன்னு தட்டி கேட்கிறாங்களோ தட்டி எழுதுறாங்களோ அவங்களை துப்பாக்கின்னு சுட்டு சாகடிப்பீங்க, இதுதான் உங்களுடைய கௌரவமா? அடைச்சி
Revati literally performs this as a one-person show, and this is, I think we have performed it now for 49. We have performed it 49 shows in the past 2 years. Even during the lockdown, we did an online performance. Now, what really becomes important when, I mean, the question is not to really include these women or these events or these sharing that I've done with you as part of theatre history. What I think we should really ask is, how have these shows and these performances and these discussions changed the nature of theatre or changed the images that theatre is really producing? So on that ground, I think women, especially women who, with the feminist consciousness, who are working in the field of theatre, I think are altering the history of theatre, you know, in this country. And it is also, on the one hand, connected to the movements, and on the other hand, it is also connected to art practice. So it is a very, very interdisciplinary area where one needs to really juxtapose it with both, you know. So it is not enough to have a very, very, I mean, you call it feminist and then you kind of have these very sloganeering kind of thing. It's not enough to have that. But at the same time, you can't say that that is not necessary today. But even in the production of characters, in the kind of images that we are really putting up on stage, I think people have brought about a lot of changes. For example, when Nirbhaya incident took place, that very same year, this happened in December, and that New Year's Eve, you had Maya Krishna Rao performing Walk, you know, the program called Walk, which inspired the African groups to perform an African walk. So it really has become a kind of anthem for rape survivors who are willing to talk about it, who are going to be talking you're creating a space. So therefore, I think the interaction between gender and theatre is about doing. You do gender, you also do theatre. It is not something that is done only in the head. It's not an intellectual exercise. It is something that we have to do, not just as an everyday level, in every aspect of life that one is really willing to be part of. Thank you all once again. We'll go for the discussions. Thank you, Krishna, once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation with the suitable videos. No person was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward for what he gave. We are honored by your presence, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Participants, do you have any queries? If you have any queries, you can unmute your mic and you can ask.
1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Manimegalai. So, no, it is, thank you. I think the questions will come from the participants. And I'm sorry, I missed mentioning that Acting Up Gender in Theatre that is published by Left Third. And about Revati, I was even sharing in the other sessions, and when she was here, invited for the first course, she performed this. This is, of course, here a video. She performed on her own when we asked for. So, of course, Revati is proved herself to be the person for this entire community to be a model and taking care of the parents and staying with the family. All these are not happening with the other 3C community persons. So now it is open. So once again, I thank you, and of course, really formal water thanks. But for bringing this, because this is another dimension people are not exposed to at all, even in the gender studies. and how, as you said, I rightly in the beginning told that you have to really practice, and it is not simply doing an intellectual kind of a discourse, but you need to also every day practice it. So that is what you have been doing and people are doing. And with this, I open it to discussion. I think there will be people can raise
I see some questions here. I see Pushpa Krishnan, who has asked, is there any changes in women's stereotyping roles in the theatre and society? I would like to believe that there are. You know, there are many of us, we don't feel very alone anymore. So there are many people, I mean, none of us have any network or association or anything, because each one of us practice differently. Some of them are professional, some of them are academic, some of us do voluntary. So, but I think there are, and whatever realities are changing in the society are also finding a place in theatre. And in, I mean, if you're, I don't know from which state you're from, but in Tamil Nadu, I think in my own practice, this has enabled me to go back to classical Tamil texts. So we have a play called Avvai, which is on a Sangam poet, who is usually visualized as this old, pious, didactic woman. But then we explored through her poetry and made her a very sensuous, life-affirming kind of a woman. You know, so there are many, many ways by which we can do. I'm scrolling down. I have a question from Suttappa. Sorry, I'm not getting your name right. From Bengal. Could you please reflect upon the Devdasi tradition and Natti Binodini of Bengal in this discussion? Thank you so much. I don't know whether you were there right at the beginning. I specifically said that I'm not going into the time prior to 1970s for the sake of convenience, because I wanted it to be connected to the history of women's movement and theatre practice. But then, yes, you're right. Binodini Dasi or Natti Binodini in West Bengal, or the United Bengal of that time, was one of our earliest actresses who wrote her autobiography. Her book is available in English as well, translated by Rimli Bhattacharya. And you really see theatre in transition and women in theatre in transition in Natti Binodini. Because on the one hand, there is this Devdasi tradition that she's reflecting on, and then she's also exposed to contemporary theatre, a Western model of theatre, and of course she's not very happy there. And there were, in fact, she built the Star Theatre, you know, and it could have been named in her name, but then her mentor made it Star Theatre. Now, of course, you have another amazing theatre personality called Usha Ganguly, who passed away on April 23rd after the lockdown. And she has a small little theatre in her theatre called Rangakarmi, and she has named it Natti Binodini Mancha, Rang Mancha. You know, so yeah. So the we don't have, we have in Marathi and Bengal, I think we have lot of autobiographies of early women actresses, and around that time, late 19th century and early 20th century, you did have many women who were part of theatre, including in women. You had Balamani Ammal, who ran her own theatre company, an all-women theatre company, which was, I believe they ran a special train whenever she had her performances in Kumbakonam. So you had trains from Trichy as well as from Nagapattinam, which were they were called Balamani specials. Now, these are all stories that we hear, and that area is something that needs a lot more research, and there are people who are working on that. Thank you for that question.
I'm happy that some friends, trans persons also signed here.
Okay.
Vaidehi has brought this to our notice. She says, I know two trans women, their story and also very pathetic. Same situation they faced in their life, but they have signed now. So they are here and happy that they have also attended. And if they want to ask any questions to Mangai, you are most welcome to do.
Yes, please.
Madam, வணக்கம்
வணக்கம்,
madam.
சொல்லுங்க.
Hello.
சொல்லுங்க, கேக்குது.
Madam, I am Brinda, madam, WC coordinator from Andhra Pradesh.
Okay.
Madam, still in this modern era also, the majority of these pictures and films, they are showing women as a sex bomb and an item girl like this. Why can't we avoid all this, ma'am? Please have a reply for this question. Though we are making many revolutionary changes for the past 10 years, 20 years also, still it is showing just as an idol or just what we'll call as a doll. But they are not confirmed the woman still as a purity and the instinctive, what actually woman has that previously or traditional in this traditional culture also, still women are treating like that only. Why can't we banish all this, ma'am?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to desire. But I think, I mean, this is an issue that you have not just in theater. You also have it in films, you have it in various other media. This kind of polarizing women, either as this very patient, sacrificing, traditional kind of a woman, and a very, very active, assertive woman who is almost like a Shurpanaga in your Mahabharata. So it's a Sita Shurpanaga syndrome. Now, theater, the kind of theater that still succumbs to that kind of portrayal, I think, are usually commercial theater groups. Because otherwise, in most other theater groups, probably because women's participation has increased there, so there are a lot of changes. Now, stopping them, why can't we abolish them? We certainly don't want to have, because as theater people, we fought the Censorship Act with great difficulty and removed it very recently. You know, so we don't want to have any such legally censoring the bodies, because as you know, when you do it legally, invariably it'll be yours. You know, it'll be all of us will be affected, because any sense of censorship comes from a very, very moralistic kind of attitude, which is essentially feudal in nature. So we don't want to really talk about it. The solution there is more consciousness raising and awareness raising, rather than any way by which we can do abolition or legal measures and stuff. Thank you for that.
There is another question.
Yeah.
Do you think online performance or social media interventions could be effective as regards disseminating the power of feminist theatre?
I mean, I don't belong to this millennial generation, you know, so doing this is so new for me. Like I tell all my friends, you know, to talk to an empty screen is something that I'm learning, you know, so it's very, very difficult to say whether performances can happen, but we are doing it. I mean, I myself have already produced one show on Zoom, and I'm also working on another one, because you cannot keep quiet. But I think online campaigns are really powerful and the only way out for us now. So I think we need to use the space, whatever kind of space that we are getting, very, very effectively. But I like these things, these kind of meetings. For example, if we had organized it in live, I mean, Manimegalai had organized so many refresher courses. You have a limit to the number, and you also have limited number of people traveling from very far. But then now we are able to reach out across states. So I also see it as a possibility, and I think we should make the best use of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Would you please comment on how a roots movement respond to gender by doing theatre? On how roots movement respond to gender by doing theatre, And another question is influence of feminist theatre to mainstream political theatre in India. Mini has asked this. Mini Sukumar.
Okay. I think by roots, you're talking about grassroots movements, Mini. And I think...
No, that is Anaga Mohan asked this roots movement and the political influence, Mini. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what they mean by roots movement is grassroots movements, right? What do they mean by that?
I think so. Anaga?
No, ma'am. No,
if you are there, you please.
No.
Yes.
Yes. It's a roots movement inaugurated after
independence.
Independence, yes.
Okay.
By
Yeah.
Suresh
Thank you. I get it. Roots theatre movement. You're talking about roots theatre movement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that question. That's a really, really important question, because I think this whole idea of building a post-independent Indian theatre made us go back to our what they called as pre-colonial forms. But I have actually written and talked about this, because when Nehru's government discusses this in the first drama seminar, they don't talk about IPTA. IPTA was already having a roots movement. IPTA was taking a lot of traditional forms, around that time in Andhra, in Kerala, in Bengal, in all these places. They were using a lot of traditional forms already. But anyway, the new government wanted to make it a project. And in the 80s, they really made it a call, So Sangeet Natak Academy announces that you need to work with a traditional form. I myself, when I began to do theatre, was one of the recipients of Sangeet Natak Academy Fellowship to work with Kooth as a form. So in 91, when I did my play Tinipur, we used the Kooth form. But even before that, I think we were all aware of the traditional movements and the impact of that. But I began in this whole lecture, when these roots, the so-called traditional forms, do not permit women. So as feminists, how are we going to respond to this roots theatre? So I think we need to be critical. So one of the things that I try and do in my plays is to really retrieve what we consider as female forms, not just Kummi, but your lullaby, your keening. The Tamil, you have these songs that are sung for first pregnancy. Seemanda Pattu, Galagappu Ellam Pattu. So in fact, in the first play, the clip that you saw, you have a song which is a traditional song. I'm not changing the lines, but it says, Tangam vechirken oru dharmam porakano, velli vechirken oru veemam porakano. So I give you gold, let a dharman be born. I give you silver, let a bhima be born. So the preference for male child is rooted in the traditional forms itself. So I have this very love-hate relationship, let me say. But I do love those forms, and I work a lot with traditional artists. In fact, the play Paniti that Manimegalai referred to was performed by a traditional Kooth and special drama artist called Usha Rani, who lives near Kanchipuram. So, and I think the presence of these women in these forms make your journey in theatre less lonely, because otherwise theatre itself is marginal form, and women in theatre is still more marginalized. So therefore, it really kind of, these women who are in the traditional forms need to be discussed, talked about, and everything, knowing too well that these forms are not very welcoming of women. To the next question, to Mini's question about political theatre. Okay, Mini, you're making me say things. I think even the best of the progressive liberal theatre are not very sensitive to women. Let me put it that way. Unfortunately, like all, I think it is just like the problem in the society, our political movements also need to be educated. So we need to really kind of work with them in order to really evolve, let's say, a feminist language of theater. So you do find a very macho images, and I think Kerala saw one of those shows there with NSD. I mean, I have problems with NSD against action against the director, but then I think to talk about a female-centered theme is to really present the female body as dignified. And I would say as any other body as dignified. And unfortunately, I think our progressive political theater is less imaginative in doing that.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we are always critical about that.
I really think this
there are
table and not
yeah.
a big public. Yeah.
Okay. We have some 3 more questions. I think we will take that up and complete. I mean, close.
Sure.
One is from Jennifer from Madurai Kamaraj University. She's asking from Visual Communication Department, and she asks like this: can you share about the responses of present-day youngsters in the making and watching theatrical art forms in this digital era?
Oh.
And yeah, shall I read the other 2 questions also?
No, let me take one by one.
Okay.
In fact, if Krishna is still around, she can actually answer that, because she has been in Stella, and I think a millennial child, and I think somewhere theatre has transformed her. Krishna, would you like to say something about?
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear the question.
What about this present generation? This generation.
Responses of present day youngsters through theatrical art.
I think
Jennifer, you can raise your hands and ask.
I think it has become more accessible than earlier, because there are a lot more opportunities for students to take part in theater. Even our college has annual productions or a theater club where we are given the opportunity to do our own productions with mentors. We have workshops. And in Chennai itself, there are a lot of productions happening in 1 year. So as compared to Kerala, which is my hometown, like I'm from Trivandrum, and there are not many theater performances happening here as compared to Chennai. And from a young age, I have been trying to watch many theater productions here, but it just never really happened. Even if it was there, it was for festivals, and you had to get a special pass for that, and it was really hard to get those. But in Chennai, it's more accessible, and I think that accessibility is coming back here. So in that sense, it's spreading wide, and it's showing a development, and I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I think the present generation is also realizing the need for these personal interaction and building up empathy.
Yes, ma'am.
Building up a group based on empathy. So therefore, I think it is possible. The next question is Shubha Maragavelappa.
And one more, Marudupandi is already there, which asks about Marudupandi.
Okay.
It is just up, asked Jennifer, who asked like this: country inside police, border area, military, both are doing some illegal against women. What will do? What is your idea? Something outside this.
I know. This has been the perennial problem. I think one of the ways in which the state power understands power, so they think in order to prove that they have power, they need to be violent towards women. And the impunity with which they go ahead, and I mean, now I think they are doing it to men as well. At least in Tamil Nadu, we know what happened in Koilpatti, in the south. So you know that violence and power are they go hand in hand, and we really need to reimagine a kind of leadership which is based on sharing and inclusivity, which is what I think feminism to me is all about. That And when it is not possible, we really have to educate people. And women's movement and various NGOs have always worked with the state agencies, so there have been orientation programs, meetings with the police force. I don't know about the army so much, but the police force at least we have been addressing them, talking to them, but they are brainwashed. And I think for that matter, which is what we call as toxic masculinity, so the men are brainwashed into thinking that if they have to prove they are powerful, they need to be violent. They forget that there is something called relationship. There is something called sharing. When you forget that, then, according to me, you're not living there. But then that way of imagining masculinity is equal to power and power is equal to violence is a very, very hierarchic, very linear way of thinking, which we need to really alter. Yeah. Mani, அடுத்த question என்ன Mani? Hello?
Shall I read the question, ma'am?
Yeah. Which
Yes,
one?
ma'am.
Shukla, sorry, it was on mute. So much glamour is attributed to everything about army, especially by media, and this new culture of meme making, speaking anything against or raising voice against is really difficult. What can be done as solution? Saraswati,
Krishna, I'm going to ask you to put the second image, Krishna, if you can.
And meanwhile, I'll also read another question.
Yeah.
The patriarchal norms are being greatly internalized by some women too. Just like you said, some commercial theatre groups are affected by the Sita Surpanagai syndrome. Is it possible that the women actors involved in such plays are carriers of the stereotypes? What is the stance about the gender norms?
Yeah. Krishna, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am, I'm presenting now.
Oh, sorry, I can't see it. Okay. Now that is my answer to the previous question about, about the memes and things and why people can't talk out. So the one on your left is Shaheen Bagh women. And the one on the right is men cooking biryani for the entire protest team there. Now, this was taken sometime in December, I think, last year. And I also had an opportunity to really be there at Shaheen Bagh on March 8th this time, and it's one of the most historic phenomenon in our country where we are really talking about struggle in a way that can be peaceful, that can be non-violent, completely, even after Corona was announced and they were all asked not to assemble there. Actually, in the Shamiana, they just kept the slippers there. So in a country which believes in the God slippers can rule the country for 14 years. We had these women who kept the slippers as part of their presence in the protest. And then you did have the taking care of those women who were in the protest meet, went to the men, and the men embraced it willingly. And anyone who had a chance to really follow up on Shaheen Bagh will know how important that is. And all of us, at least in Chennai, we had 2 or 3 places where we had our own Chennai Shaheen Bagh. And I think that is our answer to all those propagations that are really happening. And also to people who are not allowing us to raise voice. We are not raising voice. We are just sitting silently. Yeah. About, thank you, Krishna. About women who are women in theatre, whether they are really aware or internalized patriarchy. I think this is a lifelong process, I think, Shubha, because we are not sure when we are we have gotten rid of this patriarchal internalizing of patriarchy in our own heads. So what really happens is that you are faced with that, and the actors are also faced with it. And obviously, I mean, I would not expect anybody to be converted before they come into any of our work. I would assume that all of us, including us, are products of the system, and therefore we have internalized that thought. But then if we are conscious, you know, it's like in Buddhism, when you are aware. So when you're aware and breathe, they say your breathing helps you, you know, which is what Buddhism really talks about. So when we become aware of the way we have internalized patriarchy, probably we can work on it. And I don't think the actors who are carriers of stereotypes, if they are artists who are performing, they are not the people to be questioned. It is the directors that we need to question, because they are the ones who are choosing. So we are really asking about the directors to create a space for the artists to freely share whether they are comfortable with whatever kind of work that they've been asked to do. And for the artists also to develop that level of questioning. I mean, recently I was in another theatre group meeting, and one of them said, after the Me Too, and there are people who have come back to these this regular functioning, and some of the people who were called out have started creating work again. Now, and there are women, especially in places like Bombay and other places, it also means money, professionalism. You know, so one of them was asking, I am very uneasy, and how do I really work with? I mean, we are all working with life itself is the trigger. So I don't think we can go, just like how we can't go back to normal after Corona, we can't really treat anyone as normal after the Me Too calling out. But at the same time, we are not asking for crude punishments. We are still waiting. You know, I think we are still waiting for men to have consciousness, to have their own conscience. So it's a very, very difficult terrain that we are moving in. So I mean, I told her, you have to wait, because each one of us have our own time frame. So when we are ready, probably we will be ready to face the world. Until then, please expect triggers. And guard yourself. Protecting oneself is the most important thing in this world. Not just for Corona, but I think for us, women against violence, it's very, very important. I don't think we will ever be able to say that I don't have to worry about that anymore. I mean, I really wish we can tell our young women, yes, here is a safe space. Come here and have a retreat of sorts. Maybe we should do that. We should organize retreats of safe spaces. Thank you, Shubha, for that question.
Thank you, ma'am. Manimegalai, ma'am.
Yeah, we can wind up. It's already 4, and there is a problem of storing this also, and it may not be able to be available. And thank you, Dr. Mangai. Yeah, it was a very, I mean, you have taken to the other side where how this theatre could influence the lives of women, men in the society, transgender in the society. And of course, our participants would have gained a lot seeing this new insights. And I'm happy that you could make yourself available today. Now, over to Neela, please.
Yeah, but before you close, please switch on your video so that I can at least see some of my friends. Yeah, yes, Neela. You can close it officially.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. May I now call upon Dr. S. Shubha, Assistant Professor, Department of Women's Studies, Bharatdas University, to render vote of thanks. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Neela. Very good evening to our energetic friend, resource person, Professor Mangai. On behalf of the organizers and the webinar participant, I thank Professor Mangai to shared and narrated the more than half century, at least more than 50 years of experience and origin of and background of the evolution of feminist theatre in India, and as well as how the feminist theatre used as a tool for liberation of marginalized and suppressed in different perspective of gender, caste, and class, and etc. And this is, I believe that we are always, we youngsters, very much inspired by the experiences and sharing of Professor Mangai every time. This time also, we very much inspired and gained energy to this session, really making consciousness and raising consciousness to all the webinar participants to think over the alternative form of art form to liberate the society and create the gender equality. Thank you, Professor Mangai. Thank you, comrade. Thank you.